This is Janine Smith with another exclusive tutorial for TipSquirrel.com.
We've made a wood inlay tabletop in Photoshop, and now we're going to make a pile of family photos to lay on that table. The first thing we need to do is to make a frame for each of the photos to reside in. So let's start by going into the layer stack, and we're going to create a new blank layer over the background. And then we're going to go over to our rectangular marquee tool. Then we'll go up here to Style. It's at normal by default. We want to do fixed size, and the default is pixel, and it just simplifies things if you do it by the inch. We're going to do a 3" by 3" selection. Keep it within the size range of your tabletop. You don't want it too big. You can always, do it again and fix it. And when you get the size you want, just click on your background to get the selection. And now we're going to fill that selection with white, which is our background color. So Control or Command backspace to fill with white, and just click on it to deselect. Now we want to keep our white frame, but have the inside, we're going to make it black. So back up to our rectangular marquee tool, and back up here to Style, back to normal, and then just make a rough selection within your selection there. Doesn't have to be perfect. That's going to be distorted, so you're not going to be able to tell. If you end up think there's a little more on either side than you need and you want to move this around, just use your arrow keys to move that selection around how you want it. And when you get it the way you like, since it's the foreground color, hold down your Alt or Option key, backspace to fill, and Control or Command D to deselect. And there's your basic frame. And now to get all your frames for all your photos, you want a few at least, so you look like you've been looking through some photos in the background there. You'll just duplicate the layer and Control or Command T to transform and turn it different ways. Look like the pile's laying on there. You don't want them all the same direction. And when you get as many of them as you want, and you get them in the places they want, and turn the direction that you want, you'll put them on their own layer. Shift Control Alt E on a PC, Shift Command Option E on a Mac, and it'll look something like this on its own layer. And the next thing we want to do is to actually put photos in the frames. So having your pile of photos selected, go up to the magic wand selection tool and click inside the frame that you want your photo to appear in. Now hopefully you have already picked out the correct amount of photos and the ones you want in your frames, and you'll have them open on your desktop, and you go up to the one you want and select it, and holding down Control or Command A to select all, Control or Command C to copy, back to your photos, your photo frame pile here, up to Edit, Paste Special, Paste Into. And now your photo's inside the frame. And we'll want to, if your photo frame is turned any certain way and the photo won't be, you'll do Control or Command T to transform and just move it so it's going the same direction as your frame. And if you need to make the photo bigger or smaller to fit in, hold your Shift key down so that your aspect ratio is the way you want, and you can move the photo around the way you need it. You can also, once you get it fairly the way you like, you can hit Enter, and if you go up here to your Move tool, you can still move your photo in there. So you can go back later and move it if you don't like the way it looks there. Now you just go and you do that to all your frames one at a time, and when you get all of them in, you'll want to again put this on its own layer, frames, pictures, and all. Once you're sure you have everything the way you like, So before we do that, we actually want to get rid of our background because we don't want it part of that combined layer. Click on your last layer you've worked on at the top of the stack. And again, Shift Control Alt E, Shift Command Option E, put it on its own layer. Then you'll just make these other layers invisible and put your background back on, because we're going to use this top part of the desk as our guide. Now that we've got these on their own layer, Control or Command T once again, transform, go over in the selection box, right click and distort, and bring these handles down to the desktop. That's our guide. There we go. That's pretty good. If you need to move your bottom handles, if you need to move these out, if you want it to look a little more in keeping with the desktop, remember to hold your Shift key down. Keep that aspect ratio. And hit Enter when you're done. Now we want to have a slight little shadow on the bottom. We don't want a big blown out drop shadow, so we're not going to go down here to Effects and do drop shadow. We're just going to make our own. And before we do this, we want to have a blank layer under this. So we're going to hold down our Control or Command key, go down to Add a New Layer, and that'll make the new layer appear at the bottom of the selected layer. Let's get in a little closer so we can see what we're doing here. And we're going to go back up to the photo pile layer. Again, Control or Command, that key's used a lot, and click right on that thumbnail to select. Go back down to this blank layer and click on it to select. Black is still our foreground color, so Alt or Option backspace, and then Control or Command D to deselect, and now we have a black layer that matches exactly this layer on top. Move that down using your downward arrow key just a bit, so it just shows a little bit here. And we're going to go up to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur, and we're just going to do it very slightly. It's at 2.5, which actually is just about perfect. 2.5, 3.0, somewhere around there. And OK. And we're going to lower the opacity to somewhere between 40 and 50%. 47, that's good. Just give us a slight little bit of a shadow. Looks like it's sitting on the desk, not completely flat, but not a foot above it either. Let's take this back out. Now, if you want to adjust your layer, your photo pile, which we do, you can either do that back at the step where we were transforming it to begin with. Even after you hit Enter, you can do Control or Command T to transform. But if you get this far and you realize, oh, I've forgotten, well, you want to get your shadow layer in that too. So hold down your Shift key and click also on that layer, Control or Command T, hold down your Shift key, and now you can move the whole thing together, which is a good thing to know, so you don't have to go back and just redo everything. Because you want this to be a little smaller, you want to see your wood inlay. You don't want to hide that completely. And then Enter to commit to that. And that's pretty much it for our photo pile effect on our wood inlay table. So hopefully you've already given Gavin Hoey's tutorial on the out of bounds effect a look, and maybe even tried it with your own family photo. And if you have, you can do this wood inlay table effect for a background and this photo pile behind it, and have something that looks a little bit like this, which is a really creative, great way to show off a family photo. It'd be a great thing in a scrapbook or a family album, or just something maybe for your genealogical website. It's just a really neat creative effect. So I hope you had fun learning this today, and I hope you'll join me next time on tipsquirrel.com.